everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich. That's right. It's the first official episode with Tommy here with us full time, Doug. Guys, how are you doing?
Gene, I'm doing great. Tommy, how are you doing, man?
Shoot, hey, life's good, man. Shit, we just had a good weekend. Just got home, just got through eating some country cooking. I'm ready to roll, baby.
I hear you, man. So I hate I couldn't make it to Memphis. You guys were at the ball game on Saturday. Looked like a lot of fun. Tell us a little bit about y'all's weekend.
Man, it was really cool, Gene. Memphis played North Texas, and Memphis actually beat North Texas. I think Memphis is 6-1 now, and somebody told me it'd been like 12 years or something since they've been 6-1. So that's really cool. And but man, we had a big time out at the Liberty Bowl Stadium. I think now it's called the Simmons Bank Stadium, maybe. But we had a big time out there. Me and Tommy was in a big tag match, and that went real good. And but like the people there tailgating and having a big time, it was cool. It was like some old wrestling fans and some new wrestling fans, and man, we really had a big time. I think Tommy did too, right, man?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, and what a great time. I mean, they was there to see the Memphis Tigers play. But I tell you what. When we went out to the ring, there was still a bunch of wrestling fans out there, and it was a great day all the way around. I mean, the people, they was there to party and have a good time. And I think at the end of the day, with Memphis getting the big win, I think everybody had a real good day.
Yeah, and Gene, it was really cool. Me and Tommy got to see like Coco Ware, the King Jerry Lawler, different things. We took it. They want to do a little picture shoot deal, and we did a thing like that. I think you posted some of the pictures, and I thought that was real cool with the Coliseum in the background, and me and Tommy and Lawler and Coco, and I think it was about 8 or 9 of us, but I thought that was really cool also.
Yeah, I saw a recent guest, Downtown Bruno, was there with y'all, Jimmy Hart.
Bruno was there. He actually refereed the matches and stuff and everything, but yeah, there's a lot of us kind of got together, and it's kind of a cool time.
And I seen where you guys whooped up on the Spellbinder and Reggie B. Fine.
Oh, yeah. Tommy put it on old Reggie.
Yeah, Reggie, he was Hollywood. Down there in his pimp outfit. He had it going on, though.
Oh, yeah, he sure did.
Always. Well, before we move past it, I got to ask, did you guys have any good food while y'all were in Memphis?
Oh, yeah. I always get something good there in Memphis. Your little ribs, or, got to always get some of that Memphis-style barbecue.
And, when we get a chance, Gene, we run out to Germantown. They've got a great Korean barbecue joint out there, which we didn't get a chance to get at this time. But, yeah, we always get some good grub when we're in Memphis.
Awesome. Well, that's good to hear.
It's just great to get there and see the people, man. And we're sitting there, getting dressed and sitting with Lawler and, a couple of the guys, man, just talking about back. You look across and see that Mid-South Coliseum, man, and all the history there. And just get there and sit there and talk to some of the guys that made the history in it, man. It was really a cool Saturday.
And what was really cool, Gene, me and Tommy stood out, and like when our match was over, we actually probably stood out longer than I'd say almost anybody else, and we took pictures with fans, and man, just they come up and they was filming with their phones, with their videos and stuff, but they was, they was talking about the Coliseum and them growing up on Memphis wrestling. Like I said, that's just a really cool deal for Tommy and myself.
Man, that's great. I'm glad you guys had the opportunity to do that. I'm glad those fans got a chance to meet with y'all.
I hate you missed it, Gene, because you'd have sure had a heck of a time, too.
I know, man. I wish I could have been there. I was jealous. I saw those pictures like, man, I hate I'm missing out on this because it looked like a great time.
Yeah, that's what you was going to ask me. And I didn't ask you this, Gene, off air, but maybe I should have. But Tommy said, man, I thought Gene would come. What's wrong with him? I said, well, he probably had something else to do.
No, I never had it lined up to come to that one. Unfortunately, I had some stuff going on this past weekend, and I knew ahead of time I wasn't going to be able to go. So I don't know. That would have been a good one to go to because Memphis is closer than Arkansas and Kennett and some of these these other places y'all been.
Well, that's what I told Tommy. I told him I tried not to put you on the spot too much, but usually you do show up at most of them. But I told him I figured you had something else to do. But I told him Memphis was a good ride for you from your house.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm like I said, I'm down here in Gadsden, Alabama, so that's a pretty good haul. But
Hey, that's all stomping ground too now, Gene. Ain't nothing wrong with Gadsden, Alabama. It is out of the way though. Yeah.
oh yeah,
Yeah, I used to shoot Gadsden. Used to go down there for old Mickey Henry down in old Boaz, Alabama. Yeah. Lord, yeah, I stomped all them Alabama ground.
That's right. I've seen a bunch of those Georgia Championship Wrestling posters from back in the day where you was here in Gadsden, Tommy.
Oh, yeah, we did Gadsden, Anniston. There were 2 or 3 of the towns that we'd come right across the line there and do quite often. Yeah, they was, of course, great wrestling fans. Back in the day, all the wrestling, I mean, you can't beat a wrestling fan. I don't care if it's football, baseball, the greatest fans. I mean, I've been doing this so long, and like Dougie said, we was there at the, right there at the Memphis Coliseum there, and the fans was out. And, I've been doing it for damn near 50 years, and when folks come up and still know who you are and want your autograph and stuff, I mean, that makes you feel like you've done something. And, just the greatest wrestling fans in the world.
And what was cool, Gene, was a lot of them they'd ask me, Doug, you remember me? And the funny thing, this was Tommy laughs about, and the funny thing is a lot of people I do remember. I mean, I don't remember everything. I don't claim to remember everything. But there's a lot of them I did remember. And I told Tommy, I said, man, it's the strangest thing. And I told one of the guys where you sit at in Coliseum. He said, yeah, Doug, that was me. But I mean, you know how you remember certain people's faces and stuff, even after all these years and stuff. I mean, dude kind of looked the same and everything. And he said, yeah, but he was shocked. But I mean, actually, I kind of shocked myself sometimes. Not like I said, not sounding the smartest fella in the world, but there's just certain times and things that you can remember.
Yeah, it's funny how your brain will kind of lock things in like that,
Right.
And it's crazy. You talk about, I mean, like Dougie said, people remembered and stuff. Well, one of the fellas that took us to the ring, he's the Memphis security there around the building and stuff. And anyway, his dad was security over there at the Memphis Coliseum. He said he used to come when he was a little kid. Oh, he was just tickled to death.
Yeah.
And folks, and you go back and like his dad started and he's still doing it. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. Like I said, they was talking about, the guy was talking about growing up, watching Tommy when he started. I got me saying, I kind of asked him his age, and he about the same I was actually. And then talking about watching me when I started, and we just got talking about different things, but he was talking about different things that had happened at the Coliseum, which to us, Gene, that's really cool. Some people might not be, but to us, just different things that people say like that's really neat.
Yeah, it
well,
is.
One thing about it is some of the biggest angles come out at Memphis Coliseum. I mean, people did angles everywhere else, and then they started watching a little Memphis and doing a little Memphis too. I mean, Memphis, it might have been local, but it was nationwide.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's people that'll say that Madison Square Garden is the most important wrestling arena in the world. Other people say the Omni. I guess it just kind of it's a matter of where you grew up. But there's a case to be made that Memphis Mid-South Coliseum is the mecca of professional wrestling because anybody everybody who's anybody passed through there at some point. You know what I mean? Like wrestling's history is rooted there in one way or another.
Oh God, I remember. When I first broke into business, we used to stay at the old Admiral Bimbo down there, and I was like 18 years old. Big Bad John was there. Danny Hodge, I don't know if you remember him, ex-boxer, just one of the toughest men that you ever meet. And I met all them cats back then, and just to get to go back to Memphis and remember some of that stuff. And I was in that room, we all talking, drinking, do a little laughing. I was thinking, Lord have mercy. But they took me up, they wing, I mean, just a bunch of great guys that come through Memphis. And They was some. It was peck of heads too. But yeah, I ain't gonna say they's all nice because they wasn't all nice.
And Gene, Tommy just said something there. Do you have any idea, or me and you talked about this before? Do you know where Bill Dundee got the name of the Superstar from?
I don't, actually.
Actually, Tommy just said the guy. They was doing an interview one Saturday morning, and what Big Bad John say? Tommy, didn't they call him the bicentennial baby? Remember when they done that, Tommy?
Yeah, the big bicentennial baby.
They called Big Bad John. They was going to change his gimmick a little bit, and they called him the bicentennial baby. And he said, "If I'm the bicentennial baby, this is a superstar." And he had Dundee there beside him,
wow.
And it kind of stuck the same way. As far as Tommy's Wildfire name, kind of come in one of the same type deals, right, Tommy?
Yeah. We was on TV there in Atlanta. That's when I first teamed up with Tony Atlas. He's always telling me, he said, "You just like a wildfire, but wildfire when you get in that ring." Anyway, he said something about it to Gordon Soley, and Gordon Soley never let it go. It stuck the whole time.
That's awesome.
Of course, you might call me Brushfire now. I don't know.
Well, while we're talking about nicknames, Doug, when did you lock in on Dangerous Doug Gilbert?
That come about 90, I think it was 90, early 91, somewhere right through there. And to be honest, they had been so many. They'd started out with, and there were so many people that called themselves dirty this and dirty that. So I said, "We need to get away from that." And I said, "Well, what would be good?" And actually, to be honest, Lawler was the one that said Dangerous. Let's go with Dangerous. So that kind of, from that point on, kind of stuck.
Plus, if you ever rode with him, you know what the dangerous comes right. We've been cruising down the road 80 and 90 mile an hour, and he got that inside light on, and somebody's in the back seat, his head's back there looking. I'm up front holding on. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I drove a couple million miles, but I probably didn't watch the road but about 100,000 of them.
Probably.
So, Ray Russell from WrestleCopia was telling me, Tommy, that he's gotten a ton of great feedback, that people are really excited to hear that you've joined, Dangerous Conversations as a regular part of the show, and it's really great to have you. And have you heard anything from anybody, or how do you feel about being a part of a podcast? You said you never thought Doug would have a podcast. Did you think you'd ever be a regular part of a podcast?
No, I never thought I'd be part of one, but hey, but just to do it with y'all, man, it's cool. I'd heard y'all and Doug, y'all talked about it. This is nice. I don't know if I could do one by myself, but this is cool, man. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, we're glad to have you, and man, there's just so much history between the two of you guys, man. It's an endless well of things to talk about, and I know you guys said you did some meet and greets. I know you signed some autographs this weekend, and I've hung out with y'all now at a couple of different events where you were signing, and there's always a picture that you guys sign. It's one of the more popular ones. I know you probably sign, more of those than you do just about any of them, and it's kind of a famous picture that makes its way around the internet, and it's labeled the Memphis Mafia, and it features you, Doug, you, Tommy, Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, Brian Christopher, and Nature Boy Buddy Landale. Did you sign any of those this past weekend in Memphis?
Yeah, we actually did sign a few of those this past weekend in Memphis, and a few people was asking us about the name, the Memphis Mafia stuff and everything. And man, that's always, I love that picture. I tell everybody that's one of my favorites. And then before, about 2 years before Brian passed away, me and Tommy and Brian was on the show in Memphis, and there was a big banner, and it said Memphis Mafia on it. It looked like a mafia type, like design type deal. And me and I got Tommy and Brian, and us three took a picture in front of it, which my brother Buddy had passed away years before.
Yeah.
And the last picture that that we took that, I mean, it said Memphis Mafia on the back. Like, I've got the one that you're talking about, and me and Tommy signed a whole lot of those, and, man, I really love that picture. But the last one, like, that me and Tommy took when Brian was alive, it was me and Tommy and Brian, and I've got one of those in there, and it's really, the picture you're talking about, I really love it, which, I mean, I don't think people realize how, you know, everybody's got their perception of the way things are, but how actually tight and that myself, Tommy, Buddy, Brian, and Eddie were. I don't think people realize how tight we were and how close knit of a group. And now you got 5 different guys, and which we all had, I guess, our own attitudes and everything. But man, we was all actually really was tight. I mean, people don't understand stuff like that.
Well, I think that's what's fun.
When you talk about Pretty Boy Floyd, Machine Gun Kelly, and all them old gangsters, you was looking at the Memphis Mafia because that was a bunch of gangsters.
And that's what's so cool, Gene, is when we would talk about the Memphis Mafia, like Tommy would bring up the different names, Buddy would, Eddie would, like the old gangsters and stuff. And man, we just had a good time with it. But everybody, I think, in that group could really work and had their own little different thing to them and everything. And I mean, but like I said, me and, you know, we sure miss the guys that aren't with us anymore. But I mean, you know, Buddy was different. Eddie was different. Brian was different. You know, Tommy was different. I was different. But we was all actually really tight. I mean, we was one of the bunches that could travel together and get along and everything. I mean, we might need a break from one another every once in a while. But we all actually got along really well together.
Oh, it was a group of attitudes, and usually a lot of attitudes like that don't get along. But we was all, if somebody needed something, we was always there, you know, to help the other one out, or vice versa, they'd help you out. I mean, it was really, because it's hard to find a group of fellas that stick together like that. And it was, when it says the Memphis Mafia, that's what we was.
And the thing about it, Gene, they wasn't which we get tickled, certain people say different things, but you didn't have to worry about nothing that you done with us. I mean, all of us together, you know, it wasn't anybody else could go stooge or say whatever they wanted, but when we was together, now, if somebody told on one of us, they might as well tell on all of us, because we wasn't one of us told nobody on the bus. We just say we all done it. It didn't matter, and if there was consequences, we'd take them off. If you look during that time, and the guys that we're talking about, Gene, that was your whole, when you're talking about drawing money and everything, in the territory at that time, you're talking about basically from almost top to bottom, the whole Hill crew that would draw you money.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying we all did something bad, but we probably did get away with a little bit more than a lot of the other ones.
Right.
But at the same time, we was kind of like old rebels anyway. I mean, you know, we figured as long as you come, you did your job in the ring, and that's one thing I say about not day one of us. We worked our butts off in the ring and never screwed finishes up, or never, you know, what we were supposed to do on their time, we did, you know. If we had some fun on our time, then that was cool too.
Yeah, we took care of business, and we basically done what the office wanted. But I mean, it was within what they was asking. Not going to not do what somebody asked you that makes sense. But now, like Tommy said, now when we got done, the logic was that people don't understand this and that. Oh, you did this or done that. But the logic is, go do your job, work as hard as you can, work your butt off, and then after you get done, it's your time. And on our time, we done what we wanted. But, I mean...
And there's always be little whispers about, well, they doing this and they doing that. Well, we ain't up in this office tattletaling and doing that either, you know. I mean, to each their own. And the bottom line is, like Dougie just said, as long as you come perform and do your job and you there at TV and cut a promo and you put asses in the seat, which... about every one of us done that picture, we did that, you know. So we probably got away with a little bit more than other ones did, but at the same time, we always did our job.
Yeah, something. That's one reason I kind of wanted to bring that up because I know a lot of people, see that and they think of like, on-screen factions you've seen over the years, and that's what I kind of wanted to bring up. That wasn't just some group for TV like that. You guys were actually a tight knit group of guys behind the scenes, and we talked about this before when we talked in person in Jackson about how promoters in different territories could kind of pit the boys against each other to kind of manipulate things and play things in their favor. So a group of all the main heels who are united both in front of the camera and behind the camera, that had to play to y'all's favor as well, right?
Oh, most definitely. And a lot of these guys, we did a couple 100-mile trips, from Memphis to Louisville, Monday to Tuesday, you go to Louisville. And a lot of the guys, they just, because they didn't have no group, but they'd be two of them in the car. Shit, you see us going down the road, they'd be all five of us right loaded up, riding in the car because we was brothers, we was brothers. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a cool. Like I said, people don't really understand, Gene. It was a cool aspect, and it wasn't just like I said. Well, like you said, it wasn't just on TV. I mean, we was all really was cool, and we take up for one another if it come to that. But usually, knock on wood, the good thing it didn't come to that very often because they knew that each of us had the other one's back, and we was going to stick up for whatever business was as long as the business was done right. We was cool with it, but we didn't, we wasn't for it if we didn't think it was right to draw money.
Now, on camera in around 1990, I know like the Memphis Mafia that was being used on TV also included the Dirty White Boy, which we've talked about on here, Doug, about how close you were with Tony Anthony.
Yeah.
You also had you had Sam Lowe as a manager. And you also had Joey Maggs. How did Joey Maggs fit into the group there?
My brother took a liking to Joey, and I think Tommy did also. It was
Joey was Joey was a northern boy, but he wanted to be a southern boy so bad, and Eddie did. Eddie loved him to death, and but he was just of course he was young. Of course we were all young, but he was younger than we were, and. Eddie took a liking to him, and he just was very respectful, and he just fit in.
Yeah, and like Tommy said, I mean, he was really, real respectful. And what I was about to say was, I really liked Joey too, but now Eddie really liked him and thought it'd be good to give him a break and everything, and they done that. And like I said, Tommy liked him, Eddie liked him, but he was just Joey was a good dude. Like Tommy said, he was from up north, he's from Baltimore, I think, but I mean, he tried to be more like us than we tried to be like us and everything. But Joey was just like I said, he was he would do anything for you, and I mean, he was just a really good-hearted guy, and he was a good worker.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Sam Lowe. How did you guys come to meet him? How did he join the fold?
Sam Lowe was he was Eddie's friend, but he was a friend of Lawler's, and we needed a manager at the time, and you remember, which I mean, Tommy does real well. I remember as a kid Sam Bass, which you've done, and you remember that. Yeah, and Sam Bass was one of the greatest. I think I've talked to you about this a little bit, Gene. I love Sam Bass. I just knew him when I was a little kid and everything, but they wanted to do a thing and have somebody was trying to think of like they could bring and get somebody like a character to be like Sam Bass, and there was no characters like Sam Bass. I mean, I don't think you could even find anybody what they was talking about and everything. And they said, well, we'll call him Sam Lowe Bass, which because Sam would drive Lawler around in different places, so they thought, well, he's around, so let's use him. So that's what wound up being Sam Lowe. Was they called him Sam Lowe Bass or Sam Bass Lowe or something like that. But anyway, that was the thing. But Eddie get him to put, he couldn't put, Eddie wanted like put chewing tobacco in his mouth like Sam would and try to be country like Sam would. He had him wearing boots, but he was like a city boy. But it was kind of funny as far as all thing. But he couldn't put chewing tobacco in, so he went and got that, the bubble gum that was like chewing tobacco, the kids.
Big
with
league
stick
chew.
in her mouth. Yeah, Eddie had him doing that, and I laughed. And Eddie said, "You got your chew in your pocket, Sam?" And he said, "Yeah." He pulled out, and it was big bubble gum. But it was the funny. But you know what would have really been cool if you could have found somebody that was just. I mean, you wasn't gonna find nobody like Sam, somebody similar to Sam. But that's Tommy. I mean, Tommy, you couldn't find nobody like Sam Bass, could you?
No, I tell you what, when I first broke into business, he's about one of the first ones to bust my head open.
Is that right? That's cool. I was telling Gene that he was like my favorite Tommy. Like I remember like being 5 or 6 years old, and Sam would always give me money and tell me, "Go get you some popcorn and Coke and bring me back a Coke." But Sam was he was the nicest, supposed to be mean fella that there was, wasn't he, Tommy?
Oh yeah, and that, he was another who give you the shirt off his back. I mean, Sam was just. We used to follow him. Of course, I like to drink my beer back then. I think he drank him something a little heavier, but me and him always had fun together. He'd say, "Drink you another." Of course, he didn't have to twist my arm too hard. I'd drink me another. But I tell you, as far as managing, he can get that crowd pissed off quick as anybody.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Tom. And me being a kid and everything, and watching it as a fan and everything. But I liked Sam. But Sam would get people mad without hardly having to do anything, wouldn't he, Tommy?
Yeah, just that old goatee he had, and the faces he made, he'd piss you off. Yeah.
And I mean, he had on like a cowboy hat, but it was like a cool cowboy hat, like one of the flat ones. But he could get people would get so hot at him, and I think, dang, he didn't even hardly have to do anything.
Yeah, and of course before I started, he had Jerry Lawler, Jim White. I mean, that was a heck of a tag team he was managing too. Then, I mean,
right.
You know.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Yeah, I remember. There's not a whole lot of footage out there, but I remember growing up getting to see some tapes of him with Lawler and some of the old studio stuff with them.
Have you ever seen Gene Tommy? And I'm right when it's Sam and Ma Bass and wasn't there like 3 or 4 of them? But there was like a older woman that they called Ma Bass, right, Tommy?
I don't know. I don't remember her.
Gene, did you
I
ever
know
see
with Don and Ron Bass, they had Maul Bass, and I guess Sam was tied to them at
Oh,
one
okay.
point, weren't they?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when it was the Bass family or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don and Ron and
Right. Sam, Ma, Sam come in there somewhere, Gene, I'm pretty sure. I've seen, you're talking about the old footage and stuff. Somewhere I saw that, like in magazines, and I think I saw a little bit of the footage, but there's some old footage of some cool stuff from that time.
They could have had their own TV show back in those days. Even if you took the whole wrestling aspect out of it, like they were entertaining just in and of themselves. That whole,
Right. But like I said, Sam was a cool. That was a bad deal when we lost him and everything. Sam was a good one.
yes, it was. That was really a sad day.
So, and Sam Lowe has passed on since, hasn't he?
Yeah. He passed away. I think it's been about 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. It's been a while now, and everything. But he was like 5 years older than myself. I think 5 or 6 years older than myself.
Okay. I've had a lot of people asking me about him, and I just know what I've seen on TV about. He's somebody that I hadn't been able to find a lot of background on, so I was just curious.
He was also, his dad was a dentist, and he was, I don't know, you'd almost say not a dentist, but what is it when you make, well, he was a dentist, but he also made like false teeth. What would you call that person, Gene? I'm sure you know the actual name, what it would be called, but, I'd say he was a dentist, but he also had a business here in Jackson that made dentures and everything, and Sam worked in that, and he made dentures, and I mean, he was a smart fella and everything, but, I say he's a smart fella. He got with us somewhere or another. I'm not saying that was the smartest thing ever, but he was a smart fella.
I remember seeing him turn up in Continental as a photographer when you guys were down there too. Eddie had that way of bringing in his friends for different roles at different times, and I didn't catch that till years later. I was going back watching. I was like, wait a minute, that's Sam Lowe right there.
Yeah, sure was.
Now, all right, I feel like this is a good point. I've been meaning to ask you this, and I feel like just what I just said about Eddie bringing in friends is as good a time as any to talk about one of the friends that Eddie brought in pretty frequently for angles. I know he did one. He did probably the most famous one in Continental, but you guys brought him in to Memphis and shaved his head. Different times. Tell me a little bit about John.
Shoot, that's Tommy's buddy, my buddy, Eddie's buddy. That's all of our buddies. Jumping John.
John Gilliam.
Yeah. Hey, old John was great. He made so many trips with me, and so many trips with Tommy, and so many trips with Eddie, and everything. John he was a childhood friend of Eddie's and my family's and everything. John was a great guy. I mean, he'd pull his shirt off. He's another one to give his shirt off his back if Tommy ever needed anything, or Tommy needed to be picked up, or I need to be picked up, and we was flying into somewhere. John would come and get us, and it didn't even matter if all of us was there or just one of us was there. Old John he would come to the rescue if need be. And man, John was cool, and we didn't let nobody mess with John either. John was one of us.
Yeah, John, I tell you what, man. Of course, he lived there in Lexington. I mean, he grew up with Eddie, and Eddie treated him, just so good. John didn't get to go to a lot of places, and then Eddie started taking him to the towns and stuff. And then I didn't meet him a little later. I mean, Dougie knew him since they was kids, but just a great guy. And like Dougie said, would do anything in the world for you.
The first time I remember seeing him is that angle in Continental they did on TV where they brought him out of the crowd for the Golden Challenge. But then my favorite story in that Bob Barnett, I guess, shoot interview, you call it, the original shoot interview that Eddie did with Bob Barnett, when Eddie told the story of John Gilliam as Mr. Dothan.
Hey, that was cool. That was a really cool deal. You watched that on TV, Gene?
Yeah, I did. I got it on video around here somewhere, and saw it about a year or two ago. But yeah, really good stuff. But you would believe that John's somebody that they got out of the crowd down there, on Continental TV, and
Right, and you're gonna laugh, Jim.
Now John put corn in cornbread. Now I mean I'm cornbread. John put corn in it.
Yeah, but y'all both gonna laugh, and Tommy probably agree with me. Old John could work about as good as half the underneath guys could, couldn't he, Tommy?
Oh yes, he growed up and was around Eddie all the time. Yeah,
and everything. But I mean, the stuff like you're saying, Gene, about that, it fit. I mean, the thing that got over me, which I loved all the stuff that Eddie done with John and everything, but the thing that got over me was him walking to the ring. If you could see, like if you've watched tape, you've seen it. But him walking to the ring in Dothan, and the people thinking he was Mr. Dothan, which they had set it up to, the people thought it was going to be Idol, because Eddie was working a program with Idol, with Austin Idol. And when they started playing music, the people popped, and all of a sudden out comes John Gilliam in wrestling tights and boots and a mask on.
Yeah, that's what I love about that story, because he said he didn't tell anybody what he was doing, because, of course, everybody would tell him he was crazy and try to talk him out of it. And said then, right before bell time, he's like, "Go get John Gilliam." And I don't remember if it was you or whoever it was he said that to. Was like, "Oh no, he's not going to be Mr. Dothan, is he?" And Eddie's like, "Go get him."
Yeah. And see, Eddie had told, and I was one of the few people that knew it. And here's what got it over so much, and the boys thought it was going to kill the town. Yeah. Was nobody knew Idol was there but Eddie and me. And
right, because he was out in the car, right?
Yeah, he had pulled up, and Eddie told him, "Don't let nobody see him." And he stayed in his car until the music, and I think I actually went out there and got him to the music played, and Eddie come out and pulled the mask off, and then the people, had thought that they was thinking, what all the boys thought was, it's going to kill this town, the people's going to know they got screwed. Well, what they wasn't counting on was then Idol coming in, and he had a stick like a stick that went in the axe. Idol come in with that, and then when he went to freaking hit Eddie with that stick, the people went wild. And I mean, but John got to walk out, the music playing, and him walk all the way to the ring. Those people were looking like, what in the hell is this?
Because I remember that video, Eddie said he had on like Danny Davis's tights and Jerry Stubbs' mask and Tom Pritchard's boots and all. That's awesome.
Stuff on, but it told them that anybody was outside. They just thought, well, this is fixing to screw things up. But then, like I said, when Eddie started getting on him, then the Idol come through the back door and hit the ring on him, and they started brawling. The people went crazy.
Oh, I can imagine, because like you said,
but that's the thing about it. See, that's how you keep it hush-hush, because if any of the boys knew, everybody in the crowd would have knew. Yeah. That's how you did the angles back then. You kept it secret, and that's where Eddie was smart too. I mean, because that's that surprise factor. Because if one knows, then everybody knows.
And the cool thing about that, Jim, was like Idol was the same as like if it would have been done with Tommy and Idol, and there was just a handful of people that you could have done that with that was over down there in that Dothan and Montgomery and Birmingham and Pensacola. Tommy drew a ton of money down there doing stuff, angles like that, everything. But I mean, you can't do it with everybody. But there was 4 or 5 people, I'd say, that you could do it with, and I think that's what made it good.
And that was a problem. Like, so I guess a lot of the guys, they had their few fans that took care of them or whatever, and so somebody would have said, "Hey, Idol's going to come out. He's going to be Mr. Dothan." Like, even if you try to keep it hush-hush, like kind of what Tommy just referenced, there would have been a handful of fans that some of the wrestlers would have told, and then it would have spread, no pun intended, like wildfire through the crowd, right?
Exactly. And too, I mean, I don't think the guys mean bad or nothing, but it's like they won't tell people they know more than everybody else does.
Yeah. I didn't mean they go do it on purpose. But
no.
They trying to get a girl's phone number. Hey, I got a secret for you.
Exactly.
Give me that number, and I'll tell you what's fixing to happen here in a little bit. I mean, of course, that's kind of like when they took me in Memphis hell, we got there before the security, and they put me under the ring, and did nobody know. I mean, but that's the way you did that stuff back then, man. You know, it was. I mean, because you wanted that effect, and it always got the response too.
And that's a shock factor, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's even like, even with the boys, you want to shock them too, because like you said, everybody thought it was going to be just a flop, and because they didn't know Austin was there. I mean, if the boys, when you get the boys to sell it, then you know you're doing stuff right. So that was another reason that if you're doing something like a major thing like that, a lot of times the only ones that knew was just one or two people, so you could get the boys, you know, the effect of the boys too. Like, well, shit, I didn't even see that coming. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, if you can surprise them, you've definitely surprised the fans.
Yes, sir, exactly. Yes.
So, Tommy, me and Doug's talked on here at length, you know, kind of about his relationship with Brian Christopher and how close of friends they were, and, you know, we were talking about the whole Memphis Mafia aspect. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Brian and how you and Brian got along.
Me and Brian had that love-hate relationship. He always messing with me, you know. No, I love Brian. Hey, I tell you, well, just that whole group. But Brian, yeah, he'd go 100 miles an hour anyway, you know. And me, I'd kind of slow down, slow pace a little bit. But, yeah, Brian was always good. He was always messing with me. But I messed with him back, though. Don't think I didn't, you know. I mean, and just the relationships you build, like Buddy and, of course, Eddie and Dougie, you know. I mean, you talk about knowing somebody. I mean, shoot, I wrestled with his dad, you know, with Tommy. You know, and then wrestled with Eddie. And of course, I remember Eddie used to go around and take pictures. Doug, he was walking, but he wasn't much bigger than walking. He was right there too. I mean, you know, so I grew up with them, and Buddy Landell was on the road with him a lot. I mean, we just all spent time together. You know, I mean, with the Gilberts, I spent a lot more time with them than I did anybody. But
and you know the funny thing, Gene, is, and I don't think I've ever even said this to Tommy, one of the funny things to me, that all the guys that we had worked with, Lawler and different guys and stuff, Brian was, he wouldn't want to say it's nobody, but I remember like when Brian and Tommy started a program, the first kind of program that Brian had been in with Tommy, Brian come to me one night, and Brian had dropped the belt to Tommy, and they was working around the loop, but it was like the first time Brian come to me and said, man, what I need to tell Tommy we're going to do? I said, you probably don't need to tell Tommy you're going to do nothing. I said, just see what he wants to do. And he said, well, what will he want to do? But it was like he was nervous about working with Tommy. And I laughed. I said, man, it's Tommy. I said, look, I said, just like you work with me, work with Tommy. I said, just listen to him. I said, if there's something you want to do, I said, ask him or tell him you'd like to do it. I said, odds are he'll say okay. I said, man, don't sweat this. I said, you just act like you're working with me. I said, Tommy ain't going to kill you or nothing. Just talk to him.
Hey, but Brian could work his butt off too, though. He worked hard in that ring. He worked his butt off.
Yeah, he could. But I guess my point is he respected Tommy, and he respected the guys, and like, I mean, you know, on the level me and him talked every day and everything, but like guys that had worked with his dad and the guys that he had respect for and everything, he really cared about what they thought and everything, but sometimes he didn't know how to go about talking to them or saying that or anything.
You guys worked with a lot of promoters' sons throughout your careers. Brian wasn't your typical promoter's son, right? Like, from most people I've talked to that know him, said he didn't seem to have that entitlement or that attitude that a lot of those guys had.
You know what? No, I don't think he did. And he didn't also, I think one reason he didn't also is, and Tommy could probably speak more of this than me, but then again, now people might say some stuff about Lawler, but to me, Lawler wasn't never kind of like a working for a owner of a territory either. But and Brian's thing, I think, kind of felt like that too, because it wasn't like, I mean, to me, Lawler was more for the boys, which don't get me wrong, I know he wanted Jerry Jarrett himself to make money, but Lawler was more kind of for the boys than he was the office, it seemed to me at some points. And Brian was always more for the boys. But, I mean, Brian never acted like he was the office, did he, Tommy?
No, I swear, I just think to say, I know, you know, there's a lot of sons from promoters, sons that wrestling we did, and they'll all let you know real quick that their daddy owns the company, so they, you know, in other words, you better do what they. Brian, I never heard Brian bring that shit up one time. You know, he just about being there doing the job. And Brian was like one of the boys too. He didn't want nobody to even think he was in no office.
And he wasn't gonna call and tell the office nothing.
No. Hell, if they called and told, it'd be on him.
I was about to say, because he was probably in the middle of most of it, wasn't he?
Yeah. Hey, I was in a car ride one night, and Tommy got the worst end of this deal. It was me, Brian, Road Dogg, Jamie Dundee, and for some reason it seemed like somebody else was. But about half of the car was in the car with me, and it snowed just a little bit, but I guess we exaggerated and said it snowed more than it really did. And we turned around. They told me, said, "You won't turn around." And I said, "Don't say it again." And they said, "You won't turn around." There's a town in Kentucky, and we wasn't about 30 miles from my house, and I whipped it across the median, or straight down the median, up the median, back around, and went right back to where we started from. And they had a pool table in there. And we were shooting pool. We done ordered us something to eat. And I said, well, somebody got to call the promoter, call the guy running the show, which his name was Eddie Marlin. That's Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law. I said, Brian, call him. So Brian calls him. He says, Eddie? And Eddie says, yeah. He said, we're having problems. The wheels wobbling on Doug's car. And Eddie Marlin starts raised in hell. Well, all of a sudden, Brian just hands the phone to Jamie. And Eddie Marlin says, what do you mean the damn wheel's wobbling? And Jamie says, well, they just told me the wheel's wobbling. And so Tommy has went with somebody else this night.
No, but we're in Glasgow, Kentucky, and it's a hell of a house. And Eddie Marlin ain't giving no money back.
So me and Tommy are supposed to be against Jamie and Wolfie in the main event, I think, and Brian is supposed to be against Road Dogg in the semifinals. So half the main event and all the semifinal in the car with me, and they kept messing with me, which it did snow a little bit, didn't it, Tommy? So
yeah, it snowed in Glasgow, but not where y'all was here.
So they kind of had to twist my arm a little bit, but they persuaded me into turning around. But Tommy wound up wrestling about, what was it, 3 times that night, Tommy?
3, or I think maybe 4. I think I was on about that say had.
The Iron Man.
But
and then them showed up. You know how much extra Eddie Marlin paid me?
Zero.
Not a damn dime.
He paid him what his guarantee was, and that's what I told Tommy. I said, well, damn, I figured he'd give you a little bonus because he didn't have to pay about 4 of us. It was all pretty much on guarantee.
Yeah.
but that's one of the funny stories. I don't think I've told that one very much before, but yeah, Tommy, I laughed at Tommy. He said, damn, y'all. He said,
I was cussing them every one. Every time I went out there, I'd be cussing them sons of guns.
Oh, that's definitely a fun one. So,
And I think I wasn't so mad about having to wrestle that many times. I was mad because I wasn't with them.
yeah.
What am I doing in Glasgow and they shooting pool and eating?
You're wrestling in every match. That's what you're doing, Tommy.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure wasn't eating nothing.
Hey, good thing we had a good man to cover us, wasn't it?
That's right. Somebody had to take the hit.
You ain't kidding. Take one for the team.
So before we put
Well,
a
I
bow on the
forget.
whole Memphis Mafia thing, Buddy Landell, he's a guy who, historians and interviewers and wrestling journalists over the years, have always said, oh, Buddy had this opportunity to be world champion, and he blew it that one day in a hotel room when he didn't want to get out of bed, and he kind of defined his career. Tell us some fun stories about Buddy Landell, and give us a little insight into him more than just that people want to talk about.
Well, you know what I think? I think that's totally, anybody can say what they want and tell what story they want, but as far as Buddy goes, I think all that is I'm not saying part of that could not be true, but everything about Buddy to do with that right there, to me, is bogus, because Buddy was a great guy. Buddy was a great worker. They say Buddy was Malenko, I think, that trained Buddy, right? And they said he was one of the freaking, they said, rarest talents and knew wrestling and psychology and stuff, and people wouldn't think that. But Buddy was a great. Buddy is another guy, and you can ask Tommy this, and I get done talking, that would give you the shirt off of his back, and he would stop by my house that me and my wife built in the country, and just when he wasn't even working like with me and Tommy or Eddie or anything, he would stop by. He'd call me when he was coming through, and he would stop by, and he would sit for a few hours or stay the night, or maybe stay 2 nights with me. But me and Buddy actually got to be real tight and everything, and man, Buddy was just a super guy. Everybody wanted to talk about shortcomings and everything, but none of us were perfect. And we all done a few things that we probably shouldn't have done. But, man, Buddy was a talented individual, and Buddy drew money. I mean, you hear people say bad things. What about the good things? What about in Louisiana, they told me, which I never heard Watts put anybody over. They said Watts said Buddy was one of the only guys that could come in and not be on TV and be like a top heel as far as – and what – one of the things that was so great about Buddy, he could get heat with anybody, couldn't he, Tommy? I mean, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
It didn't take you putting him on TV for him to get heat. Buddy had that natural, but he would do, like I said, he would do anything for you. He was a great guy. He was one of my friends. I mean, I think we all loved Buddy. I mean, Buddy was just a good dude, and people that didn't have the opportunity to be around him didn't realize that about him. But Buddy was a talented freaking dude, wasn't he, Tommy?
Oh, he could work as good as anybody in the business, and he just like the rest of us. He just had his own attitude, and Buddy, he was happy-go-lucky, and he might have missed the opportunity over there, but it's like Dougie said, in Memphis he drawed money, Louisiana he drawed money. He just kind of like Elvis. He did it his way, and whether you like him or not, he was a hell of a worker and a good friend of mine.
And you know who, Gene, who idolized Buddy?
Who's that?
Brian Christopher.
Oh,
You talking about one of the funniest things was Lawler asked Brian when he was a young fella who his favorite wrestler was, and Lawler thought he would say himself, right?
Right.
And he said, Buddy, Nature Boy Buddy Landell.
That's awesome.
I bet Lawler hated everything.
Well, that's what Buddy said. He had heat with Lawler from then on.
Yeah.
but I mean, here's the thing, like, and we don't think nothing about this, but like, remember Buddy doing like the corkscrew elbow, Gene and
Yes.
Tommy? Remember Buddy would do that, and it looked good and everything. Well, Brian done that, but a lot of stuff, if you look back at when Brian started, if you look at, he tried to do a lot of stuff like Buddy did, but he told me one time that Buddy was his favorite, and and when Buddy got there, I'd tell Buddy that, and Buddy'd mess with him and stuff. But that's what's so cool. But I mean, like I said, Tommy and T, Buddy was a cool dude. I mean, we all done stuff our own way, and Buddy sure did stuff his own way. But I mean, I'm not saying that's bad, but we all had our own ways that we went about things. But people want to talk about the Georgia deal, and I mean, I heard the same story, and I mean, Buddy talked about the story before that they had promised to put the world strap on him, and that JJ was going to be his manager instead of Flair's, but that didn't happen. But you know what? Look at the rest of Buddy's career. I think he had a hell of a career, and like I said, Buddy was a great guy.
Yes, he was.
I always found Buddy to be very
we
entertaining.
missed a lot of good folks.
Oh yeah, and here's one of the funny things is like one day we was in separate cars and Brian and Buddy was riding to Louisville together, and me and Tommy and Eddie was going to Louisville together, and we got to Louisville, and Brian looked at me and I said, "Did you have a good ride?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I love Buddy, but he's crazy, ain't he?" I said, "Brian, we all crazy, I guess." And he started laughing, but yeah, but like I said, Buddy was Brian's childhood. Like Brian looked up to him like his childhood idol, and I thought that was cool.
Man, that makes so much sense. Now that you say that, and I think back on a lot of the things Brian would do on TV at different times, that makes so much sense. And I just recently watched an angle and put it up on the Dangerous Conversations Facebook page where Brian was going to bring in a mystery partner to wrestle you guys, and it was Buddy Landell as a babyface. And I thought, man, that's so odd bringing in Buddy as a babyface, but that kind of makes a lot more sense now to kind of know that, Brian was such a fan of his, so that's cool.
Yeah, and see, I don't even really think I've ever even said that to anybody before, Gene. It's meant a lot to me, and I mean, I know Tommy liked Buddy, and they was tight too, and everything. But it just, I guess, what got all of us, we all had our quirks, or maybe we was all a little bit different, but in some ways we was all so much alike, also.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, that's the great thing about this show. Is, we can talk about different things, and it takes the conversation down different avenues, and it gives you an opportunity to talk about some things and say some things that maybe has never come up in previous interviews or other, places that you've talked about this. And that's the great thing about having this podcast every week is it gives you a chance to kind of tell some
really
stuff.
Cool? You know what's really cool about it to me is most of them podcasts you get on, all they want to hear is the old trash and stuff. Just get on here and reminisce about the good old days and the good old times. I mean, like Dougie said, we all got some luggage. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's a doggone one of us that would change a thing.
Exactly.
Well, me and Doug have said from the very beginning that that's what we're here for, man, is to, talk about the good times and the fun times and the things that, you guys love about the business and the great memories you have. There's plenty of other shoot interviews and podcasts where people want to talk about all the bad stuff and knock people and make and really present. And it's a disservice to all you guys because when you present the business like it was all just a bunch of debauchery and scumbags and terrible people, I mean, I know that sells DVDs and it gets clicks, but it makes the whole business look bad, and it makes all the guys involved look bad. It doesn't do anybody any favors.
Oh, yeah, and I mean, it's like, that nobody talks about running up and down these. I mean, we didn't just go to the buildings and wrestle. We was on the road 6-7 days a week running 100 to 200 miles to 300 miles, a road trip, wrestle. I mean, shoot, you spend more time with each other than you would your wives or your girlfriend or whatever the situation may be. I mean, we spend, and people don't realize that. And you get to learn, you learn who's your friends and who you ain't your friends, who you want to hang with and cut up with and all of that. I mean, it's just, you just build bonds and relationships that can't be replaced.
And as, and like I said to Gene, Tommy, I said, Gene, when we started this, I said, if you want me to say a bunch of bad stuff about people, I said, unless it's somebody I don't like, I said, I'm not just going to just say bad stuff. I said, there's too many good stories, and we had too much fun. I mean, me and you did on the road separately. We did together. We did all the people that I was around. We had a lot of fun, and there's so many fun stories. I mean, some of them are really serious, but there's.
And when you talk to the wrestling fan, they don't bring up all this old garbage stuff. They bring up about, hey, I remember seeing you at 7-Eleven down there, man. We sat and talked, man. I really enjoyed that. That's the things people love to hear. That's what I love to talk about. I mean, because I get goosebumps talking about it now. I mean, if it wasn't for GPS now, we wouldn't know how to get to a town. Used to road atlas, get to town, stop at a store and there'd be a fan there, they wouldn't just tell you how to get. They would take you to the building. I mean, and that's what it was all about back then.
And too, I mean, Jimmy, if shit got real deep and we had to fight, we'd all fight. I mean, it wasn't nobody running. I mean, we hope that did happen, but we wound up in those spots a few times when you was talking about the Memphis Mafia there, where we had fight. We all fought. I mean, it wasn't, didn't nobody run.
Yeah, well, no, look out, here they come.
Good luck, guys. I'm out. Yeah, I can only imagine, because back in the days when people really, really thought it was real, and they're like, hey, there's Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich over at that gas station. Let's get them. You gotta handle it.
Yeah, and I mean, me and Tommy actually went through that, and like I said, we wound up going through it. One night I was with Eddie, and the dude jumped on him before I got there, and I went to swing, and I hit him. It was dark, and all of a sudden I heard Eddie say, "Oh!" And I kept on swinging. Finally, he said, "Who are you swinging at?" I said, "Hell, I'm swinging at them." He said, "Well, you hitting me?" And but I mean, we had some wild times. Me and Tommy right out in the traffic in Nashville, people running at us, and me swinging sticks at them and stuff. I mean, people think it's all jolly all the time, and everybody thinks that nothing happens. But I mean, there's times, like I told you, I mean, there's different things Tommy can tell you and that I can about just us getting out of buildings and things that you had to watch out, and the police would tell you, look, we won't get you out of here, and we don't want any trouble. Last thing me and Tommy was any trouble, and for somebody to stab us or something. So, I mean, you wanted heat because heat draws money, but we didn't want to get ourselves killed either.
Right.
Yeah, we loved them, us, but when you was a bad guy, you loved them to hate you. Sometimes they hated you, a little more. It wasn't just at the building. You leave the building, sometimes you had to look for somebody to hate, instead of being at that store to say, hey, good job or something, they were there for trouble, So you had to always be on your toes.
I kind of figured that's why it wasn't exactly a coincidence that Dangerous Doug started toting a baseball bat around all the time, because you just happened to have that thing with you on the way to the car, on the way to the building. You had a bat ready if you needed to handle things.
Well, that sure helped a few times, hasn't it, Tommy?
Yes, sir, it has.
I imagine so. Well, guys, it's been another fun conversation, and we look forward to doing it again next week. And if you're listening, if you got questions for these guys, send them in. I'll be more than happy to ask them, and they are more than happy to answer. And like we say, you ask one question, and it can take us down a few different roads, and you don't know what story may come out of it. So please don't hesitate. You can send them in on our Facebook, or you can email them to DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com, and we will ask the guys right here on the show.
Hey, man, I just want to say it's a pleasure to be aboard and looking forward to next week, man.
Good deal. Hey, thanks, Tommy. Look, Gene, peace. Y'all be cool.
By the way, if you have an upcoming wrestling show, autograph signing, collector show, Comic-Con, or any event or booking, and you would like to inquire about the services of Dangerous Doug Gilbert and or Tommy Wildfire Rich, just send us an email at DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible to find out more information and do our best to make that happen for you. Also, if you're interested in advertising your event, business, or product to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations, as well as across all our social media platforms, you can also send those inquiries to DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com. Also, remember to check out DougGilbertPodcast.com. That is where you can find links to all things related to this podcast, as well as to Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich. We've added Tommy's links there as well, so you can find them, everything I describe, right here, the Dangerous Conversations Facebook page, where we post all sorts of great content almost daily, actually, involving the Gilbert family, as well as Tommy Wildfire Rich. We also have the Dangerous Conversations Twitter, now known as X. We post things there as well. Plus, there's the Dangerous Doug Gilbert Facebook and X pages as well, where you can keep up with everything Doug has coming up, like shows, signings, conventions, you name it. You can keep up with it by following Doug on social media. He appreciates the support, and if you really want to show your support, check out the Gilbert Family Pro Wrestling Tees store, featuring a tremendous array of T-shirts featuring Doug, Eddie, and their father, late great Tommy Gilbert. If you've enjoyed the show you just listened to, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on the platform of your choice. It would really help us in building the podcast for the future. And if you want to see a plethora of matches, promos, and angles featuring all the Gilberts, as well as Tommy Wildfire Rich, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@Retro Wrestling Archive. The link to it is available there at DougGilbertPodcast.com, where you can also find the link to Tommy Rich's Facebook page. You can go and check out a lot about Tommy there, as well as our Dangerous Conversations page. Plus, don't forget, you can find all things related to my popular Retro Wrestling Review podcast at USWAPodcast.com. And last, but certainly not least, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Go on over to WrestleCopia.com to check out all of the great pro wrestling related podcasts and content that our friend Ray Russell provides over there. You'll be glad you did. And we'll see you here next week for more Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to USWAPodcast.com.